Hey guys, this is Maylani Hawk with Why Not Me Academy. Thanks so much for being here. You're about to listen to my interview with Jan Hargrave, who I just love. I just love, love, love. She is a specialist in nonverbal communication, especially in negotiation and sales. She worked on the O.J. Simpson case. She's worked on all those big cases. She's going to talk about it in this episode. She also gets consulted on White House officials to analyze their body language to see what they're really saying. She's fascinating, and talking about how she analyzes those things, but also how you can take those in to Zoom calls, how you can take those into presentations you're doing, how you're doing, what kind of handshake you should be having. All of those things are wrapped up into this episode. So I hope you love it as much as I did. Thanks so much. Hello, guys. Welcome to Why Not Me Academy. This is Maylani Hawk, and I have Jan Hargrave on here today. And she is just a hoot, but at the same time, she has so much amazing knowledge on this topic. And I'm really excited to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us, Jan.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here. Let's have some fun today.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be so great. So Jan and I, we spoke at a conference together last year, and my husband and I, we left, and we said it was like a week long at a resort, all-inclusive resort. It was an amazing time. But we left and we're like, our only regret of the week is that we didn't hang out with Jan more, because she is just so awesome and has so much great knowledge. So let's get into it. So Jan actually teaches people about nonverbal communication skills in negotiation. Did I say that right? Is that
You
right?
said that right. Nonverbal communication skills in negotiation, in selling, just in presenting to yourself, in job interviews. I mean, there's so many ways that you can use it effectively, even in Zoom calls that we're having to do now.
Yes.
So your body language just says so much about you. It's not the words that you say sometimes. It's going to be based a lot on your actions of how you move your hands and your arms and your eyes and your facial expression, the kind of smile you give someone, the kind of eye contact you give someone. So yes, I've been doing this quite a number of years, studied it in college. I even taught it in college to attorneys. That's how it started off.
Okay.
I was teaching it primarily to attorneys to help them learn how to read people more effectively, to pick a more effective jury for them. So we were teaching them, how to spot a liar or how to spot a truth teller. And then after several years of doing that, businesses realized we need to bring this to business, because all of the deception gestures that we trained and taught people about in the courtroom, that very well applies to in the business world, and all the gestures of confidence. So thank goodness that all of this that we learned and we had been teaching the attorneys was so adequately preparing people for when they have to do negotiations with others.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. It's such a random thing to get into. Like, what even made you want to be a part of this? Or how did you even know it was a thing?
In college, and I'm from Louisiana, so I went to school in Southwest Louisiana, Lafayette, and I had this wonderful, fun professor, and every few days he would walk into the room and he would just say to someone, I know what you're thinking. And then a few days later come back and say, I know what you're thinking, and I know what you're thinking. He kept doing that to us. And then one day he said to me, Jan, I know what you are thinking too. And I thought, how can this old fool know what I'm thinking? Because it always wasn't too pretty. So he told us about body language. And I said, you mean I can tell if a person's telling me the truth or not by the way they move their hands and their arms and their eyes? And he said, oh yeah, he said, you can do it. And at that time I was dating someone. So I happened to say to my college professor, I said, so when this man tells me he loves me, I can figure out if he's telling the truth. And he said, oh yeah, you can do it. And I thought, wow, I said, I need to learn this stuff, because I thought, what an advantage I would have all my life. I could figure out if my boyfriends were lying to me or not. So then from that moment, I just started doing all of my graduate research in the field of nonverbal. And I did paper after paper and research after research. My master's thesis was in the field of nonverbal. Now, I'm a business major and a psychology minor. So during the day in college, I taught business law, economics. But then they wanted to offer classes at the night school, and they were looking for some of us as professors who had researched interesting topics. So they asked if I would develop a course that we could offer to these attorneys on nonverbal communication. So that's how it got started. I mean, people started taking the class because this was 22 years ago. People at that time did not fully believe in body language. They thought it was just a crazy thing, but now we've proved it is a science. So I would teach them all the spots. I mean, all the gestures of honesty and dishonesty and confidence and nervousness. And then at the end of the semester, to test it to see if they had learned, I would house a To Tell the Truth game panel show in my class. There was an old show called To Tell the Truth. So the
Yeah.
very first semester that I taught it, on the last night, I brought out 3 ladies into my classroom, but out of the 3 who my class did not know, 2 were imposters and 1 was of a true profession. So the very first semester that I taught it, I brought out a nun. I had gone to a Catholic school. We had lots of nuns in Louisiana. I had a friend who was a nun. I said, please come with me to this class. But I said, do not wear your nun's habit. I said, just wear a regular suit. So then I had to find myself 2 other ladies, though, who looked a little bit nunly also.
Okay.
So as each lady came in, I would say, who are you? And the first would say, I am Sister Mary Teresa. Second would say, no, I am Sister Mary Teresa. Third would say, you know what? I am the real Sister Mary Teresa. Then my class could say to them, how many beads are there in a rosary? Does the priest drink the wine? So think what was going on. They were asking these 3 ladies questions, but they were simply watching also their body language. And at the end of all the questioning session, I would say to the class, who do you think is the real Sister Mary Teresa? And 9 times out of 10, they had gotten it right because they had been trained that semester, that full semester, in understanding how to read someone else. So that's how I got started in this. And then businesses realized, wow, let's bring her there and let's have her teach someone. Because when you think of the statistics, this is what the numbers are. And I think that's really good for your listeners to understand. 55% of our communication is nonverbal, 55%. So when someone first sees you, whether it's on a Zoom call or in person, right then they're thinking, do I like this person? Do I trust this person? Does this person look confident to me? So that is 55% of our communication. 38% of our communication is simply voice inflection, whether we're on the phone or we're with someone. You know, when your voice sounds excited, that makes that other listener feel excited too. So you can convey a lot about yourself from your voice inflection. So think about that in your Zoom meetings, in your conference calls by video, and then when you're with them in person. And then research says that only 7% of a person's actual face-to-face communication does come from the words that they say. So,
Okay,
it's like the old saying, actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
We say, what is it? What you can say? Yeah.
I was going to say,
because even when I'm talking with you,
tell me again.
Actions speak louder than words. 55% is nonverbal, 38% is voice inflection, and 7% comes from the words that we say.
That is crazy.
So, I know, because as I'm watching you talk with me, the feedback that I get back from your face is giving me the nonverbals I need that say, okay, Jan, you can talk a bit more, so think about it. When we're watching each other, I'm looking at your head nods, I'm looking at your eye blinks, I'm looking at your smile. And so that's the same way. And now maybe in the social distancing concept, we have to rely so much on that when we're talking with someone else.
Yeah.
Later on, we're going to be with people in person and we're going to look at, their hands and their feet and their legs. But right now, we just have, from the chest up, probably to look at someone and kind of get an impression of how much they're liking what we're selling and we're liking what they're saying too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a few things, so many things have popped into my mind. First off, for anybody not watching this, I love Jan. I'm like a fangirl of Jan.
Good.
But also like having this interview, I'm like, how's my voice inflection? I don't know, which I'm sure you get all the time. All the time. But I was doing a virtual seminar just yesterday actually, and I only had room for one Zoom person. It was supposed to be a live event, but it was a Zoom instead. And so I only had room for one person. I was like, who gives me the best nonverbal feedback? Because like you said, It really comes back to me as a speaker. And sometimes when I'm on other people's podcasts, on you obviously know on ours, and that we do video and audio, because I don't like it when I go on other people's podcasts and they just do a regular phone, because I'm like, are you listening? Are you liking what I'm saying? Is this resonating with your listeners?
And two, while you're saying that, it makes me think of the word mirroring and matching. Mirroring and matching are 2 big words, in the whole nonverbal field, because the emotions you send out, you're hoping if they're good ones, you want to get them mirrored back at you. So nowadays when we're doing these virtual calls, where I'm kind of relying, is the person looking happy when I'm telling them this? Are they not looking happy when I'm telling them this? So, if you understand the emotions of the face, and that's what we're going to have to almost study now. And I'll send you to a website where people can get the emotions of the face. And it's a little test where they just show you a face. And then you have to say, is this face showing happiness? Or there's only 7 basic emotions, universal emotions. So if you study them enough, when you're in the conversation with someone, right away you'll figure out, are they frustrated? Are they're angry? Or they're disgusted with what I'm saying? And I'll send you that website that you can
Okay.
take the test. Anyone can take it, and you can take it over and over again until you become a perfectionist in the 7 emotions of the face. And that's what I
Yeah.
might have to rely on now for these webinars that people do.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely
Mm.
put that in the show notes because that sounds awesome. The other thing I was thinking of when you were talking about the nun story, I'll have you know that I actually, you know how in high school they do like um, best dressed and most, I don't know,
Okay.
most likely to succeed or whatever. I remember being a senior year, so excited to see what I got voted, and I got most likely to become a nun. And I've decided to take that as a
No.
compliment. And hopefully that means I am a good example of Christ. I don't know, but at the
a,
time I was like,
a good example
oh,
for people. Do you know, on Facebook, they send you those little tests that you can take,
yeah,
those things that say, you want to know what you should have been. Do you know that when I did it, and I'll send you a picture of this, mine was a nun.
was
Mine
it?
was a nun. What is the most likely profession? One was a gunslinger and one was a nun. Those are my 2 most likely professions. Isn't that pretty cool?
That is really cool. We are soul sisters. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so let's talk about some of the basics. Some basics that everybody needs to know about
Okay.
nonverbals. What, like, give us some tips.
Okay. When you some tips about when you're in person with someone, or you doing
Let's
these
start
virtual
with
messages.
in person.
So
Or
in person, the
yeah.
very first thing that, okay, keep going. No, ask me that again.
I was gonna say, well, let's start with the liar one. Okay, so I remember
Yeah, how to
after
tell if someone's lying.
yes, let's start with that.
Yes. Okay, so let's start off with a little bit with hands first. So, hands reveal so much about you. And the best way for someone to get to trust you quickly is that they get to see some kind of way the insides of your palms. So when you're first talking with someone, you make sure that when you're talking with them, because when your palms are facing downward, it says, I want to control the conversation. When your palms are facing upwards, it says, I want to bring you into the conversation. I'm going to kind of lift mine and show you where they are now, but you're not going to put them that high when you're talking with someone. Primarily, they'll be around your waist. You're talking, your hands are kind of moving this way. So insides of palms that someone can see of yours when they're talking with you is the quickest way to build trust with someone. So you never want to stand with someone for 30 minutes and keep both of your hands in your pockets the whole time. I know that might be comfortable, but it is not a good gesture. So when we talk about the hands and how the motions of the hands work, when your hands are moving, when you're talking, the movement of your hands help you organize your thoughts so that you can speak them freely with your mouth. Because if your hands are tied behind your back, it's very difficult to organize your thoughts and speak in logical sentences. So that's what's great about having arm motions. And people say, oh, Jane, if I couldn't use my hands, I could not speak. And I say, that's quite okay. I want you to use your hands because the motion of your hands, and when they're freer and they're flowing, the words come out of your mouth freer and more like you're flowing into the conversation. So as we talk about hands, I want you to understand when we talk about lying and honesty, that our body is kind of divided in this way, our nervous system, and the left side of my head controls all the motion on the right side of my body, and the right side of my brain controls all the motion on the left side of my body.
Oh,
So let me just talk about the right hand for a minute. The right hand is controlled by the logical left brain. So everything I ever memorized in school, all my math, all my science is here. So when I'm having to compute, if I'm having to multiply something in my mind and I have trouble getting the numbers multiplied, if I move my right hand, it kind of helps me organize that thought better, and then I can speak it. So when I want some factual information, typically my right hand is going to move. My left hand is controlled by this side of my head, and the right brain is the fun side, the comical side, the creative side, the imaginative side. So when you're daydreaming, it's usually this side that's working. And so this side operates my left hand. So when someone is not telling you the truth, usually the truth is something that's made up. It is coming from this side of your brain. So think about it. This side of my brain controls this left hand. So when I lie, I'm typically going to use my left hand and gesture with my left hand. Not that left-handed friends of ours are more liars than right-handed friends. It's only
okay.
because the left hand is controlled from the right side of the head. So what we have found is this. So when someone's getting ready to tell you something that's not true, one of the first things they're going to do, they're going to try in some form or fashion to kind of cover their mouth or attempt to cover their mouth when they're talking with you. So they'll probably start talking. Maybe their hand is kind of moving in front of them this way for a minute. And then they're going to take their left index finger. And while they're being dishonest, they typically will rub up and down the left side of their nose. A liar usually does this. He goes up twice and then kind of looks down and then rubs across twice this way. He usually goes up twice and then out twice. And I'm certain you've seen someone just kind of rub the tip of their nose and say, yeah, you look real good. And they were just fibbing with you. But the reason that a person does this, kind of bringing the hand here, is that when they bring it here, they're trying to distract from you the information that's coming out of the mouth. Because when the hand is here, you're looking at the fingernails, you're looking at the rings, you're looking at a watch. So that's all distracting to you. So anytime someone's going to try to cover the mouth, probably they're trying to cover or conceal information from you. And the other reason that a liar touches the nose, it's a physiological effect. Every time you tell a lie, you get a tingling sensation in your nose. Yeah. And because of it, you end up rubbing. So it doesn't matter what country someone's from. Every one of us on the face of this earth, our right brain controls our left hand. So anyone from anywhere, any culture, any nationality is still going to use this left hand when they're telling you something that's not true. And the rubbing of the nose also goes back to the Pinocchio effect.
That's what I was going to say.
And there's a commercial, a Geico commercial or something where he sits at a table and he tells a girl a story and the nose gets bigger and he tells her she looks more beautiful. The nose gets longer and longer until he actually hits his glass of water with his nose. So that's where this motion here comes from. And then the second and third gestures that I like to teach about dishonesty, again, they're left-handed gestures. The second being that when someone's going to lie to you, they're going to take their left index finger and they're either going to rub slightly below that left eye or they're going to rub the left eye. So when they're rubbing slightly below, it's as though they're thinking, do not see very clearly what I'm saying because I am not being fully truthful with you. Or you might see someone for a long time, they're going to rub and they'll say, oh yeah, that looks real good on you. Most of the time, they're not telling you the truth. And then the third one, again, it's taking the left hand and it's doing this. It's kind of rubbing on the back of the ear as they're talking with you. And I'm certain you've watched people have conversations with you. They're doing this. They're doing it so that you look here and that you do not focus on here. And when they're rubbing the ear, they're non-verbally saying, do not hear very clearly what I'm saying because I'm not being fully truthful with you. So the rubbing of the nose because they're covering the mouth, the touching of the eye because they're saying to you, do not see it very clearly, the touching of the ear because they're saying, do not hear it very clearly. And, people say to me, well, Jan, I understand why they touch the nose because they want to cover the mouth. But why would someone touch his eye when lying? And why would someone right next to him touch his ear? These two touches are primarily based on that person's favorite way of getting or learning information because some people are visual learners, some people are auditory learners. If you are a visual person and you're saying something that you know is not true, you're going to go and touch the area that brings you the most information to soothe it. So visual people when lying do this, audio people when lying do this. All of us do this kind of motion here. So you see, and the thing about it that you have to think about, these gestures, all these extra little gestures that people do, those are called displacement gestures. Displacement gestures are gestures that are not necessary. They're gestures that are done when someone is nervous. That would be as though, let's say I'm talking with you and I was just rubbing and scratching my arm this way. When you know it's not itching, it's just that I'm doing this to kind of distract your attention from what I'm saying. So anytime you see some displacement gestures, maybe someone pulling imaginary lint off their clothing, constantly playing with a necklace, constantly playing with an earring. These are displacement gestures, and they're done simply to distract you from the words that come out of the mouth so that you're focusing on something else that they're doing at that time. So that's why you catch people when they're nervous. They'll do these things. And so as opposed to just dishonesty, and there's a lot others, there's eye motions, there's some things people with the mouth, the nose does a certain thing too when people lie. So when we're in the courtroom, we're listening to someone's story, we're looking at everything to try to see if we can catch you. It's like, when I'm talking with someone, I'm thinking to myself, they must be thinking, I would hate to be married to this woman. Would you hate to be married to me? Because I'd catch you every moment.
I'd catch me every time.
As opposed to the dishonesty too. Yeah, I'll say, I caught you, Cecil. You better quit lying to me. I'll catch you every time. And now honesty, let's talk about some honesty gestures. Honesty is done with the right hand and is still when the right hand is on the chest this way. This is a huge, huge honesty gesture. It's similar to the pledge. When the pledge, our fingers are together, you see this way, but in the honesty, they're wide apart this way. And when someone's doing this, it's like they're saying, I'm fully bringing in the information. I'm telling you this. It's a huge honesty gesture. The right hand coming to the heart with the fingers wide apart, not with the fingers this way, but the fingers wide apart. So it kind of comes here. So when you're watching someone, I mean, just think we're going to do these social distancing calls. And so even that way, you're going to watch someone probably from the chest up. So you can see what the shoulders are like, and uneven shoulders when someone stays this way too long it's a person who's very difficult to make a decision. Unevenness of shoulders is very, I don't know exactly how to say it, but it takes them a long time to make a decision. So make sure that when you're talking with someone, your shoulders are straight and broad across too.
Okay. Well,
Yeah. So those are just a few things of honesty and dishonesty.
That leads me to the next question. What are some tips, or what are some indicators, I guess, of trying to have authority in a conversation, or
authority. Well, you mean when it's a face-to-face kind of conversation, the bigger space you need around you, the more powerful you will look. So if you can put your arms back and maybe your feet are planted straight, you're not just on one leg standing and putting all your weight there. Plant your feet, and put your weight evenly on both of your legs. Kind of put your arms a bit, that there's a distance between your arm and your torso. I mean, it kind of looks like you're a Westerner to begin with, but because the more physical space you need around you, the more powerful you can seem to someone else. So if you go into a meeting, your arms are crossed in front of you, your legs are crossed in front of you, think how compact you make yourself. Mm-hmm. And when people get that compact, that's when other people feel that they can beat down on you. So if you can even sit on a chair this way during a conversation, more power to you. When Oprah interviews someone, this is how she is. Her arms are on a chair and she's kind of talking to you this way. This is a lot more powerful than someone who stays with the arms crossed and with the legs crossed. And so you'll even be able to tell when people are having conversations with you in virtual reality. They're going to, if they're comfortable and confident, maybe you see their bodies kind of going back and they're talking this way. So I think you're going to easily spot that. And the biggest gesture of confidence is what was termed the steeple gesture. And that's when I take my hands and I place them here, but I'm putting them kind of high here, but I want to make sure that listeners and people watching can see. It's normally done at chest level. So it's usually done about here. Okay. Anytime you're going to see a steeple, it is always, always associated with a level of confidence. You never want to do it up here, though. That's not right, but I'm just doing it up here so that you can see what I'm talking about. It can be done at waist level. It can be done at chest level. And it doesn't have to be done with all the fingertips together. I could just put my 2 pointer fingers here. I could drop this hand down in my lap and have a conversation with someone else. And if they're watching and they understand body language, they could see that I'm doing a steeple gesture. I could even sit there with my thumbs together this way. So anytime you're going to see some kind of steeple gesture, someone talking, their hands are this way, not even touching, this is called a goal post steeple. So anytime you're going to see this kind of formation, it's always going to be associated with a level of confidence. And even if I take my hands and pretend that I'm holding a basketball, but I'm having my hands at my waist, I'm talking with you, my hands are in this circular fashion here. When I'm doing this in nonverbal, it indicates that I'm saying mentally that I have all this information in the ball of my hand, and I am gladly going to pass it on to you. So you never want to be doing this or doing all kinds of little things with your hands. It's better that your fingers are wide apart. You're kind of talking. You want to look authoritative, and you can do that by some of the nonverbals that you send to other people. Because this tiny thing is called non-confrontation, with your hands across, your arms across. And when people see you that way, that's when they see you at your weakest, and that's when they're going to try to come in and get their way. So as much as you can, you can talk and you can kind of put your shoulders back, your arms back when you're having the conversation with someone.
Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about, tell me like some of the crazy things that, and in your bio, I'll read your bio at the beginning, but crazy things that you've seen in courtrooms that were big indicators, or I don't know. I'm sure you have legends of the
I did, remember Robert Durst? He was a guy they did an HBO special on, who was in fact, he was in California a while back. He finally came to trial. And he had done an interview called The Jinx. It was on, I think, an HBO special. I was called in to do his body language. he was the man who was accused of there's two ladies who are missing, and the interview was crazy. You can just download it and kind of see it, called The Jinx. And then when the interview's over, he goes into the men's room and forgets that the microphone is still on, and he's looking at himself in the mirror and he said, yeah, I did it, I killed them all. So I did his body language, but I started doing body language with O.J. Simpson's body language. Did O.J. Simpson, went on to John and Patsy Ramsey, went on to Scott Peterson's body language, went on to Jorn Vandersloot, even Casey Anthony, the young lady in Florida. I'd done her body language too.
Really? Oh,
so
wow.
when you know enough about this, but even in cases, let's say here locally, they'll just hire me to come in and look at someone's testimony. And the great thing about let's say they send me a video of someone's testimony, that is ideal for me because I can play it over and over and over, and I can stop it at certain instances and see what was the question that was directed to that person, and then totally analyze what the body language of that person was. And there was even a case here where it was a murder, but when it happened, it was at an auto body shop, and the young man who is the defendant was sitting at a desk, and someone comes into the office, and he's looking for someone else, and he wants to do harm to the other person. And so he was kind of tough, and he was saying, like, where is he? When I find him, this will be the end. And so this young man is kind of afraid, and there's a camera behind him here that's aimed towards this guy. I can't see the guy sitting at the desk, but I know he's sitting at the desk. So when this guy goes to leave, he turns around. This guy thinks he's going to shoot him. So this guy shoots him at the door, the guy at the desk. So then, of course, they called the cops, and then the attorney for this young man just called and asked if I would look at the videotape to see if the man who came into the room was threatening enough that caused this man to fear his life.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And two, there was no sound on the video. So at first they had hired a lip reader to just look at the lips of this guy talking, because that's all we could have seen. But she could not really read the lips because it was kind of all muffled. And they had seen something of me on television. And so they asked if I would just look at the body language. But when I take a case like that, this is what I do, because I don't want to ever be the one that is to blame for someone being found guilty or not guilty. So I make a list of all the threatening and non-threatening behaviors that I have ever studied in the field of body language. Mm-hmm. And then I go through the threatening ones. And if I saw those on the tape, I check it. But I also list all the non-threatening behaviors that I have learned, in the field of body language. And when I see that there's some that are non-threatening, I'll check those too also. Mm. Then I bring my findings to that attorney, and I let the attorney make the decision of how they want to represent that client.
Oh, interesting.
So then that way you can kind of sleep with yourself instead of saying, I see this body language and I think this person is guilty. I see this body language, I think he's not guilty.
Yeah.
So then it kind of rests well in my mind. And also when we pick a jury, we have a seating chart. People are 1 through 8 or 9 through 16. And then if the attorney's asking a question of number 32, because there might be 50 people in there, on my seating chart, I have a square for number 32. And while he is asking that possible juror, a question, I can make notes in that square. And then later on in the day, I can meet with the attorney and I can tell him what I saw with each person that he asked questions of. And then he can make his judgment whether he wants to use that a person or not. So it kind of makes sense. Doesn't it kind of make sense when you put it in that context? I think so too.
I love how you said, like, I was going to say that's such pressure to be like a one-man jury, basically. He lied.
Now you can see how it would work, and that's the only way we can put it in our minds. We just take all the knowledge that we have. But I am most best when I am really, all zeroed in on someone and looking at their tape after and after. Because if I'm speaking to a group of 3,000 people, think of what's going on in my mind. I'm teaching body language, but yet I'm trying to gauge myself, watching the audience members to see if they like it. So those are harder jobs for me than going into that courtroom and just looking at one person for a long time.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Okay, now I feel like when I first heard you speak, you talked about something with, was it red ears?
With red ears?
No, what was it?
No, I don't think so.
No, what interlinking power hands? Was there something?
No, I didn't do that, but I know that the steeple gesture.
There was something at the very beginning that you did, and you
know what I did at the very beginning? I said, let's pretend that we're in the courtroom, and I said, raise your right hand.
That one.
Let's say I would say to you right now, Milani, just raise your right hand and say, I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth. Okay. So then I leave people like that for a minute, and I say, freeze your hand, because by the way that your hand is up, I'll tell you if you're going to be honest with me or not being honest with me. So when I look at someone doing this, there's 5 different ways they put it up. Some people do just like you and I are doing, my fingers are all spread out. Yours are pretty much spread out. Some people do it and their fingertips are together. So that gives me some other meaning of theirs. Some people do it and they bend their fingers forward a bit. So I tell them what that says. Some people give it to me and they have 2 fingers together and 2 fingers apart. So I'm really worried about them. And then some people put the hand up and they put the fingers way back. So these are the 5 analogies. When someone comes to you this way, the fingers all spread out, the hand really rigid, this is indicative of someone who's really frightened and they're going to tell you the whole truth. So if ever you go to court, just make sure that your hand is this way. It's a good one. The second one, though, is equally as good. My hand is straight up and my fingers are tight together. This is a good one. It's labeled an analytical honesty. This person will tell us the truth, but we'll have to pull it out of them. In the third one, my fingers were bent forward. You know that anytime someone bends the fingers forward in the courtroom, it says that they're going to try to lie to us. So you may want to watch for people who do this. When someone puts 2 fingers together and 2 fingers apart, this usually says that they're kind of mixed up because this is an immediate kind of honesty and this is an analytical honesty. So when someone does this, they give me both kinds of responses. And then lastly, I bent my hand backwards. When someone bends the hand backwards, it says that they're trying to bend over backwards to get you to believe them, but will be typically trying to tell you a lie. But the key thing is this: you need to get the hand straight. So the straighter the hand, the more honest they are. Any kind of bend would mean that they're kind of trying to bend the truth. So then once the hand is straight, you want to see the fingers are wide apart, the fingers are together, the fingers are to the front, fingers are to the back. So now you can do it with someone. You can do it with your kids today.
So that's what I did. We came home and actually we had told our kids, because we took 2 of our kids with us to that one. And we had told 2 of our kids. And so we got home and we had our kids initiated it to the other kids. And it was interesting because out of my 5 kids, like 1 is too young to do it, but the 4, they were all different. And yet very it was right in line with their personality,
right, with their behaviors and with their personalities.
So it's really interesting.
It's kind of so I'd usually start off like that and teach some part of that. And but it's been a great career for me, not thinking when I was in college how everlasting, because I had no idea when I studied in school that people would really relish learning this topic. And I'm just thankful that I chose that topic, because it seems like nowadays more than anything else, I might even hear someone on an NFL channel, an NBA channel say, look at their body language when they're going back to their seats. So everyone now understands the importance of nonverbal. At first, I had to explain it and beg people to understand and understand the worth of it. But now it just comes naturally that people know, because you can be as smart as you want, but unless someone gets to trust you, and you get people to trust you by using effective nonverbal skills, unless you get someone to trust you, you're gonna always have a tough time in selling. Always.
This
always will.
That's great stuff.
Unless they trust you. And so, and usually I would teach people about shaking hands, and, a handshake straight up and down is equal opportunity for each person to speak. When someone gives you the hand facing downward, it's controlling. When someone gives the hand facing upward, it's more that they're wanting you to participate with them. The best kind of handshake is a straight up and down, because it's a virtual thing. But nowadays we cannot shake hands. So we have to find some other kind of way to tell people hello. So, I said, let me try to see what I can do with body language to help people understand this. And as I researched it, what I found? That it takes about 2 weeks of virtual conversations that will equal the amount of trust you can build with one handshake. So 2 weeks. So, but if you know the right body language to use during that virtual conversation, maybe we can get that down to 1 week. Because you have to, because you and I talking about maybe buying a home together, or I'm buying something from you. Yeah. I'm going to have several conversations with you to, first of all, see if I'm going to trust you before I really think that I'm going to purchase from you. So it takes about 2 weeks. But, if you know what good eye contact is, what the power of maybe a head nod would be when someone's talking, what's the power of a smile. Then when you know all of these together and how you're going to use your hands when you're talking with them, you can maybe make that less, maybe a week, then you can build that. About the equivalent building trust of one handshake would now take about 2 weeks until people understand how to really sell themselves through nonverbal communication and virtual conversations.
Wow. Because so many people are doing virtual meetings and everything. Do you have any, what else, You
from
talked
the
about
top.
we can find the
Yeah.
7 basic facials. You're going to give us the website for that.
Yeah.
But anything else that we should be aware of, in this
Well,
life of Zoom
I
meetings
have
now?
a few that maybe someone, maybe I'll just give you a few that I'm doing some television shows on this, but it's kind of like resetting expectations to build trust with people. And one of them, of course, is going to be the eye contact, because when you're looking at someone, really, really for a long time, supposedly when you're having a conversation with someone, it's about 60 to 70% of the time that you're talking with them, that you have to have your eyes looking at their eyes, because eye contact is it's building a bond between the two of us. And I'll tell you what's the hormone that lets out. It lets out a hormone called oxytocin, and that supposedly is a love hormone. But
Ooh.
if you're into them with the eyes, really in contact with them, and that you're smiling with your eyes, and there's a different way to smile. There's a fake smile where just the bottom of the face is tight, and there's a genuine smile where it involves the whole face, where the eyes kind of crinkle and the lips are going back. So you want to make sure that you do a genuine smile. You want to make sure that you give them eye contact about 60, 70% of the time that you're talking with them. And, the other one too, I want to mention is nodding. And definition of nodding is that 2 nods are like an invitation to someone else to continue talking. So, I might be speaking and go, So normally we'll go twice. When we're ready for someone else to shut up, we normally go 3 times. So you could kind of watch for that in your virtual
Okay.
calls. So normally you're like, okay, okay, So 2 nods is okay. 3 nods is that you want them to be quiet.
That's
Another
interesting.
thing,
I've got to use that with my podcast guests. Who
yeah, you got to
knew?
use it. Another one is even the eyebrow raise, because when you're raising your eyebrows, it's acknowledgement that you're wanting them to continue the conversation. One eyebrow raise is more that you're questioning what they have said. And also think about it when you're squinting your eyes, it's almost as though you're trying to say to them that you disbelieve what they're telling you. So you want to make sure that your eyes are open, that you're really in contact with that person. So going to the eyes, and then I talked about the nodding and the smiling. Also, the one that I want to mention to people is never cross your arms or keep your arms crossed when you're talking with someone. You always want to be like in a winner's position with your hands up, and you can really get them interested in you, because think of the difference in a winner's position. When you're winning a race, your hands are up, you're excited, your head is even up, as opposed to a loser's position where your chin is down. And even blind athletes know that they need to lift their arm. At the end of a race, a blind athlete knows that I'm going to lift my hands up and I'm going to lift my head up. So kind of think of being a winner all the time when you're having these conversations with someone, I think is going to be to your benefit. Another one that I mentioned to people when I teach the classes on how to have good virtual conversations is about using the tone of your voice that you feel makes someone else want to listen to you. It cannot be abrupt. It has to be at the most normal range. And you also, while you're having these virtual conversations, is to listen to the tone of your listeners or the people you're talking with's tone of voice, because they may be concealing sadness, or they may be concealing that they're frightened about something. But if you know them well enough, you can probably pick up in the tone of their voice and maybe help them have a private call with them. But the tone of your voice is something that you can get others to trust you with, and it has to be as normal as possible. Never forced, never that you're sounding bored, never that you're sounding impatient. Another point that I mention to people when they're having virtual conversations is that you want to always model optimism and enthusiasm, or optimism and concern. And by that, what I'm getting at is that you let others know when they have done something good, and they have contributed. And it's almost as though you're giving them a gold star, because anytime someone feels that they're part of the team and they feel that they're needed, it's like when you and I send out a post on Facebook and someone puts a like or puts a heart, that's what it does for those people. So as many gold stars as you can, that you can be as sympathetic and empathetic as you can with someone, I think is going to help you to build that trust even faster. Another one that I mentioned was, maintain a less is more movement. If you're a person who starts off the phone conversation standing up, then you need to probably stay standing up during the whole time. You don't want to be pacing, is what I mainly mean, because it's going to distract people too much. If you're seated with someone, make sure that they get to see your lips, because if they get to see your lips, it helps conversation to go along smoother and faster. Because when I'm watching your lips and you're talking with me, you can almost kind of figure out what I'm going to say next. And so make sure that look how powerful our lips are. So make sure that you wear lipstick next time that you're talking with someone. Another one that I wanted to mention is that this is my 9th one, emphasize likability and warmth. And by that, I'm saying that you need to emphasize and build likability with someone else by seeing how quickly you can establish some me toos with them. By me toos, I'm saying that, you might say, I really like the weather today. And I'm like, oh, me too. So the more times you can get someone in the first 5 or 7 minutes of talking with them to say me too, instead of saying, oh, not me, oh, not me, oh, not me. The more that you can get them to say me too, the quicker you're going to build some kind of thread of compatibility and trust with them. So in your next conversation with someone, just think, try in the first 5 or 7 minutes, get them to at least say, oh, one, me too, or one agreement with you. And then you're going to get to build that trust with them easier. And then the other one that I mentioned was to, right now, since we maybe cannot shake hands with someone, we need to display powerful intentions, whether it's going to be the namaste when we greet someone or the bow of our head when we greet someone. Then I think that it's really important that we're doing that. And one thing that I had found from the research is that when you greet someone, do you go, let's say you're walking a path in the park, when you see them, you go like this, or do you go with your head up, or what do you do?
I'm for those that are listening instead of watching, when you're walking past someone, do they nod when you walk
Going
past
down,
somebody? Do you nod down or do you nod up? I think I'm a head up person.
A head up person is someone who's very confident with themselves and knows where they're going. A head down is someone who's more respectful.
That's interesting, because when you said it, I kind of thought, well, it depends on how old they are.
Yeah.
And so I feel like,
I no matter how old they are, I usually go down. I'll go, I usually go down. My husband goes up.
Oh, really?
So just think, so figure if you go up, you go down, but up people are like upward bound, and they're like, they pretty self-confident, they got it all going on. Downward, or maybe like those of us who went to Catholic school, we probably go down. And also, the greatest gift we can give someone else is to make them feel as though they're part of you and they're part of the team. Because even when you're in elementary school and someone picked you on their team, how excited did you feel? How excited did you feel? Like, oh my God, I'm on the team. It's the same thing now, and if you think of Maslow's, theory of needs, the first 2 are basic needs, home and shelter, but the last 3 are what we're going through now. And those are where people are nourished only by relationships. That's how we reach this top level that says self-actualization. And that's all through relationships that we have with people. So that's why we cannot let our relationships go away, even though we're in social distancing. Yeah. And, when I summarize it, it's like this: when you smile back at someone, when you smile at someone, they're probably going to smile back at you. So when I give assignments, after I give a lecture on this, my maybe 2 or 3 assignments I would give to the people listening is that the next time you speak with someone, try to find 3 commonalities with them between the first 5 to 7 minutes. If you don't understand an expression that you see someone give you all the time, I want you to try mimicking it by yourself and see how it makes you feel. Let's say you see someone who's always doing a certain kind of face, and you can say, I just can't figure out what that face is. You do it by yourself and kind of see what your emotion is at that time. Okay. So one is to find 3 commonalities between the first 5 or 7 minutes. Second would be to see if you cannot figure out what the emotion is, to try it yourself. And then third, I would say to people that you take that exam on the facial expressions so that you would understand the 7 basic universal facial expressions. And it's through www.greatergood.berkeley.com. But I'll give you that so that you can send to everyone who's watching and listening. Yeah. But I think maybe following some of these examples is going to help you to maybe build trust easier. And, to help us with our shoulders, even to keep our shoulders straight. You ever did yoga, or you ever did a shoulder exercise where, you go in the front and you go in the back? Just go in the front for a second. Okay, bring your shoulders to the back. Now bring them to the front. Now bring them to the back. You see when you have them in the back, you see that back socket? That's a socket we probably need to keep them in when we're confident. So when you think of it that way, it does make sense, because I'm often in the front socket, but then when I think about, oh, look at me in the back socket, it kind of makes me feel more powerful. Look at you in the back. Are you in the back socket or front socket right now?
I'm a front socketer.
I saw you get in the back socket, girl. You're good in the back. So I hope some of these help, and that people can understand the whole value of nonverbal communication.
Super helpful. I have one last selfish question, because you present this on stage. If you ever feel like you're losing an audience, what is your go-to nonverbal act? That like if you feel like you're starting to lose them, and they're starting to glaze over. what is your go? Like, just throw your hands up in the air and say, I don't know. How do you
No,
bring it
no,
back
you
in?
can never say that, nor can you ever begin a speech by saying, this will be the worst 5 minutes, 10 minutes you'll listen to tonight is me speaking. You can never downplay yourself at first. So what you have to do from all my years, I guess, of speaking and thinking, suppose I would get an audience. Think of it as my audiences don't ever get tuned off because they always want to know how to tell if someone's lying or how to tell if someone loves me. So I always entice them with some of that.
Okay.
If I notice that I'm in a lull where there's like too much technical information, I might throw in a sentence that says, by the time you leave here too, I'm going to even teach you some love gestures of nonverbal communication. So then they rise up again. But the thing is that you have to maintain your dignity and your stance. So if you're standing there, the best way to stand is that your feet are shoulder width apart, your hands are you using at your best, and you get through that rough part in your speech like this. You just get through it, and then you're going to hit them with some fun stuff, and at the end, you'll get this every time.
I love it. I love it.
So you
I love
can't give up.
Okay, Jan, where can people find you? You've got awesome books. Oh, and you're going to,
Right.
For listeners, if you reach out to Jan, she's giving a special book giveaway.
Yeah, my website is just my name. It's www.janhargrave.com. And I just finished a 13-module course. It's nonverbal communication, negotiation skills. It's really good. Lots of tests, lots of studies. So I teach the course and I give tests and I give a final exam at the end. And you can get that on, www.janhargrave.com/course. And then you can sign up for the course. And then all of my books, I just have a couple of them with me. This is one of my books. It's called Strictly Business Body Language. This is negotiation. This is one of my books. It's Let Me See Your Body Talk, and it's body language during job interviews. This is one of my books. It's body language in the courtroom. It's called Judge the Jury. And this is the best. I mean, a fun one. It's the body language of lovers, and it's called Free Way of Love.
Oh,
Signs that many women do that say, oh, baby, get over here. And there's another one called Poker Face, but those are my books here.
Those are awesome. And if you want to find her on Facebook, you can find her at Jan L. Hargrave as well, or at her website, janhargrave.com. So thank you so much for being here,
You're welcome.
Jan. It's been a blast.
Look, I'll put my right hand to my heart. I had a great time.
And I will welcome you in and say thank you.
Thank you too.